Episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of Rotoballer. My co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. Another Chicago street course race that turned into quite a shit show. Rain once again affected the Chicago street race after a very late start. We did not get this race even scheduled to start until 5 p.m. Eastern time. Rain messed it all up. They got 58 laps in. Alex Bowman got the win due to darkness. They called the race early. Tyler Reddick, Ty Gibbs rounding out the top three. Joey Hand comes away with the fourth place finish in that 60 car for RFK Racing. Michael McDowell, the top five finish. Great for me for that 36 for 36. Stenhouse, our boy Todd Gilliland, William Byron, Kyle Busch, and Ryan Blaney rounding out the top 10. SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, very heavy favorite this weekend at Chicago Street Course. He wrecked out due to Chase Briscoe. And that's kind of where I want to kick off things here because this was going to be my whine about it, but I have so many things I can whine about that it's not even going to be about SVG. But SVG, you know, Sportsbooks had him as a plus 200 favorite for this race, which is like levels that we haven't seen since Kyle Busch was regularly running into the truck in the truck series. What were your thoughts on that? Do you think that was justified? Obviously he had probably the best car, honestly, you know, early on in that race. He probably would have won that race if he wouldn't have got wrecked. But I know you and Greg were, and I was on it. I didn't actually bet it. I know you guys did, but SVG to not win the race. And obviously those bets hit over the weekend. But what were your thoughts there with, you know, just these betting lines for the Chicago Street Course? Because it was wild. There's, to me, like, you know, looking at all the lines, I felt like there was a ton of value there everywhere. But at the same time, there was enough unpredictability that I didn't really want to bet anything.
I mean, of course it shouldn't have been plus 200. That is stupid. And that's why we bet no. That's why I bet him minus 210 to not win at Circa and minus 240 to not win at Caesars and minus 250 to not win at BetMGM. I was fine with if that's all you had available to you. No, that was ridiculous. We're talking about road course racing in NASCAR. Nobody should be a plus 200 favorite in any road or street course race in NASCAR. Period. I mean,
in any race
too much
in NASCAR.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I don't really care about the ovals, you know, when I'm analyzing this. But no, I mean, the fastest car, the best car, do they always win in road course and street courses? No, of course not.
Nope. We went over this last week.
That's why in every other road and street course race that we've bet, you maybe are getting somebody down at plus 500. And even then, they may have the dominant car and not win. My model had SVG at like tops. Like if I was being really generous, 20%, right? Which would be plus 400. And that would be if I was being really generous. So no, absolutely no way. I had 5 drivers in it. Honestly, I think a lot of people were right there with me on the model. I had 5 drivers in double-digit percent. I know NASCAR Probs on Twitter. He does his own model. He had the same 5 drivers in double-digit percents other than Michael McDowell. I had McDowell above 10%. He did not. And I know Jim was very high on McDowell as well and had, I think, the same 5 guys above 10%, right? Like, Ty Gibbs was really good. Christopher Bell was really good. Kyle Larson was really good. And, of course, McDowell was really good. If all of those are at least 10% to win, then that's 40% right there. That only leaves SVG 60% if those were the only 5 drivers who could win. Now, of course, Alex Bowman wins, so of course those weren't the only 5 drivers who could win. So you have to assign probability to all those other 30-plus drivers that are in the show. We had 40-car field this year, so the other 34 drivers outside of the big 5 plus Bowman. So, yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I didn't understand, you know. Oh, and I should say Truex as well. I was in my big 6, I think it was. It was either a big 5 or a big 6. Now I have to. Did I say Reddick? I'm pulling up the odds right now that I had.
Yeah.
How did I not say Reddick? All right, let me pull
He was
up my
easy. He's been easy to overlook.
Larson, SVG, Larson, Gibbs, McDowell, Bell, Reddick. Did I say him? Let me resort this. I have it sorted differently. Yeah. So SVG, Reddick, Gibbs, Bell, Larson, and McDowell. So it was a big 6. I had 6 drivers over 10%. So that's 50% right there, just among 5 drivers, I should say. Then you have to, again, assign probability outside of the big 6 to 34 other drivers. And obviously Bowman, funny enough, after the big 6, my next highest win probability, and this is post-practice and qualifying, was Alex Bowman at 4.8%. So
that's funny.
The driver outside of the big 6 that had the next highest win odds in my model was Alex Bowman, and he was the winner, which I didn't bet him to win. I did bet his top 10, which I gave out on Running Hot. Forgot to check in the Action Network app because we recorded Running Hot Wednesday night because Thursday was July 4th. Running Hot came out on Thursday, and I was, vacation mode, and didn't track it. And by the time I got around to it, it was Friday already, and things had moved and stuff. So didn't track the Alex Bowman top 10 bet that I had, but I gave it out on Running Hot plus 330. That hit, and I was much more comfortable with Bowman top 10 than his win probability, because as we saw, he was stage points racing. He got the most stage points in the whole race. It just so happens because of the rain and shortening the race, that also ended up being the optimal strategy, when that would not have been the optimal strategy without the shortening there.
Yeah. I know, like, that was one of the guys that I'm kicking myself for not betting, because I know I brought it up on last week's episode that I was like, I think Alex Bowman top 10, that's one that I'm looking at. Obviously, I was on Buescher top 10 just because it's Chris Buescher at a road course, but overall, obviously Bowman's win has massive playoff implications and what it does to the point standings, but I want to stick on this Chicago street course, and all the talk is, will they be back to Chicago? Should they go back to Chicago? Was it the right decision to do it like they did? They really, their hands were tied. So NASCAR couldn't have ran that race on Monday without probably shelling out a shit ton more money, because the track, like, they cleared that track and those streets were drivable the next day. That was the plan for Chicago. That's why they could not run on Monday and couldn't push it back without, they could have, but they couldn't have, if that makes sense.
It's a street course. You have to. It doesn't matter what series it is. You have it scheduled for the weekend. If you don't get it in on the weekend, you don't have it. Same with IndyCar, right? They're just gonna race in the rain in IndyCar. Even if it monsoons, they will either just flat out cancel the race or have a caution procession because you don't get a chance to go in the Monday. And so, to your question, should Chicago be back? Yeah, I thought it was great racing. Yeah. But they should start it at 1 local, or 2 local, not 5 local or 4 local or whatever it was, 4 local. If they had started the race at 2 o'clock local, they would have got the whole race in before rain even came.
And that brings up the question of, all of the NASCAR media members are, well, it was a weekend planned with music and festival and then the race. And so they weren't going to, put the race in front of the music. Well, then plan the fucking weekend without the music. Like, I don't get this. I understand they want to make it
or have it after the race. There's options here. And this is going to tie into my whine about it. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff to whine about this week. But yeah, I can't tell you how many DMs and messages I got. They're like, why the fuck is this race starting so late? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know, because Chicago is notorious for weather like that. I mean, going into Sunday, I remember going into Sunday, I looked at the weather forecast. It was 20% chance of rain, just rain, just maybe like a sprinkle, and it fucking downpoured there. It sucks for them. It sucks for NASCAR because it's another, black eye, quote unquote, on the Chicago street course. And like you said, it is good racing.
Wet or dry, it's great. It's been great racing.
Yes. And I can't wait to see a full race there, but they're just running into these bad situations, and like I said, their hands are tied. They can't really do much,
other than start earlier, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could do that, but I mean, we saw amazing racing in the Xfinity series on Saturday. Absolutely. SVG versus Larson and everything else. So, overall, Alex Bowman getting the win. Any other big surprises that you could take away from this race, or is this another one of those road course races that it's just like, yeah, it happened, but we can't put much weight into all of this?
Yeah, for sure. Plus, I wouldn't put much weight into it. The whole wet, dry stuff at the beginning was weird. McDowell's team switched to Like, everybody went on dry tires except a handful of people. And then after 5 laps, McDowell's team goes on to the wets, and they went way too soon, and he goes a lap down.
Yeah.
And then the rain comes, and everybody switches to wets, and he's trapped a lap down, and thankfully, because of all the chaos, he got his lap back, and actually ended up finishing, I think it was 6th or 5th or something, 5th place.
Yeah.
Crazy enough. But, no, there's, like, nothing you can take from that. We know who's good in the wet, we know who's good in the dry, but, like, in terms of, like, comparing speeds, you can't say Martin Truex Jr. is bad. They were just on the wrong tire. So you have to, like, take all of that speed stuff with a grain of salt, because it all mattered, like, who was on what tire when. You even see at the very end of the race, Bubba Wallace passed a bunch of cars in those final couple restarts, and he was on wets, yet Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell were close on Bowman, and they were on dry tires, so who knows?
Yeah.
And that's because Bowman had really old wet tires, and it was starting to dry, so his tires were chunking probably, but managed to hang on. It's hard to put a lot of stock into that race. You can't even really put much stock into the strategy in that race. Like, is this team going to points race at the next road course race or not? Because it was such a cluster.
It was.
So it's kind of, at least like it was at least with the exploding curb Indy year, first year of the Indy road course, like we had 80%, 90% of the race where we knew how fast cars were, right? And so even though it shook up the finishing order totally, we still got an idea of speed. This one, we just don't really know everybody's relative speed for the next time they go to Chicago, and it's going to be a dry race.
Yeah. It's one of those, we said on the podcast last week, like neither of us were betting much early. Obviously you hit the SVG to not win. I think definitely like the obvious bets were there, but I had no interest in betting anything, even after practice and qualifying. I had no interest in betting anything. I did hit Busher over Allmendinger. That was just one post-practice bet that I put in just to have, like, that was more of a I need to have something, to provide something. But other than that, like, I was completely ready to move. I was ready to watch the race, which I admittedly didn't really get a chance to. I was ready to watch the race and move on to Pocono. It was just one of those, I wanted to watch it. I didn't care about betting it. I wasn't big on fantasy. I randomly put in like 5 or 6 lineups just to have them, just to have something to root for. But overall, it's one of those races where ready to move on, ready to go to Pocono and
absolutely.
And be entertained. With not much other takeaways from the Chicago Street Course, we're going to look at the playoff standings now. Alex Bowman's now locked in with his win, so we have 12 different winners this year. Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, William Byron all have 3. Then we have Reddick, Blaney, Cindric, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Alex Bowman, and Daniel Suarez all locked in with 1 win. Truex is now 125 to the good. Gibbs is 84 to the good with his 3rd place finish. Chastain plus 53 now, and now it's Busher on the cut line. Plus 45 over Bubba Wallace. If it was, you have to win and get in if you're under the cut line. Last week, it's even more so now because it's just growing here. We got Chase Briscoe there, 88 below the cut line. Kyle Busch, 98. Loving my Kyle Busch to not make the playoffs bet right now. And Todd Gilliland now into the top 20, minus 121. By the way, guess who has the longest streak of top 20 finishes right now? Now that Chase Elliott has officially ended his
average finish of 13.3 over the last 9 races. Also, I had him plus 550 for a top 10 finish. He finished 7th. Gave that one out on Running Hot as well. Another one that I didn't track because of July 4th.
Hell yeah. But yeah, Todd Gilliland. Not to mention, we have more news to talk. There's a bunch of news we have to talk about. But first we're talking about these standings. How concerned are you now? I think Truex and Gibbs have to feel pretty good, but Chastain and Busher cannot afford to fuck up.
No.
And that is going to be very fun to watch.
I disagree on Gibbs. I don't think he can feel pretty good. Not at all.
I think he feels better than Chastain.
One bad race and Bubba Wallace wins Pocono, and he's out of the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
We saw Ross Chastain. You said 3 weeks ago, Ross Chastain was good. He's 50 points clear. He's good. Now he's in trouble. Just last week, Ty Gibbs was only barely. Just last week, Ty Gibbs was only barely good by like 19 points over Bowman, and only because he had a good week and Buescher and Chastain did not. That's the only reason the gap expanded. That same gap can shrink in one race. The same gap he pulled out in one race can shrink in one race. He's not safe at all. Ty Gibbs is absolutely not safe.
I didn't say safe. I meant he feels better than
he
Chastain
can't feel.
and
You said
Buescher.
Comfortable, and I would not feel comfortable.
More comfortable than Chastain and Buescher.
I don't think so. I wouldn't feel more comfortable. I don't think anybody that is in, but only on points, is comfortable unless potentially you're Martin Truex Jr. But even then, Truex has had kind of a meltdown lately, and we saw Truex was 5th in the point standings somewhere like that 2 years ago. Or Blaney, I think it was, and almost didn't make the playoffs. Because we still have Daytona. We have Pocono, Indy, right? These are races where strategy and randomness can come into play, especially Pocono and Indy in terms of the ovals, the non-drafting ovals, because of how big it is, and you can pit and stay in the lead lap and pull some flipping stage shenanigans, those kinds of things. So I don't even think Martin Truex Jr. should feel like comfortable, but certainly he's not feeling terrible. But like Ty Gibbs definitely shouldn't be feeling comfortable.
Wouldn't that be that might be what I'm rooting for now, is Truex to slip out of the playoffs somehow. Like that would be the news of these playoffs. Is
retirement.
If the guy 20 races in, you're 5th in the points, and you somehow miss the damn playoffs. Mm-hmm. Like that would be, that'd be fun. But the remaining races in the regular season, we got Pocono this weekend, we got Indy next weekend, and then we get 2 weeks off for the Olympics. Then we get Richmond, which Truex had the best car at Richmond earlier this year. Michigan, Daytona, which is the absolute wild card here, because that's where things can definitely shake up. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. Things can happen at Pocono, things can happen at Indy, things can happen at Richmond, but the biggest chance of something major happening again is going to be at Daytona, and then we end the regular season at Darlington. Those are the remaining races in the regular season. But yeah, it's Bell sitting up top with 24 playoff points locked in. Larson's got 23. The actual playoff points at point standings now has Larson ahead of 11 points ahead of Chase Elliott for the regular season title, and then Reddick's 23 back. Yeah. So something to keep an eye on there, because there's additional points awarded for regular season points championship as well. So obviously those guys are racing well, but this is, I don't know, man. This is just turning into one hell of a season, like we keep saying. Yeah.
No, for sure. It's definitely been a great season, and this playoff standings are gonna be pretty interesting. And there's drivers outside of the playoff picture looking in that are good at the next two tracks, and you got a guy like Chris Buescher who's won at Michigan before. You got Ross Chastain who's great at Darlington, for example. Anybody can win Daytona, so these playoffs are still wide open. Wide open.
I think we need to give our boy Todd Gilliland more of a shout out here. He's sitting 19th in points. Okay, he's 10 points behind Daniel Suarez.
Yep.
He's 23 points behind Kyle Busch.
Yep.
Like, he's having a hell of a fucking season. Shout out Todd Gilliland, DFS MVP this year.
I was gonna say I have an announcement to make. Todd Gilliland has joined the list of Rotodoc's favorite drivers.
Hell yeah.
An official, I'm a Todd Gilliland fan. He is my favorite Cup Series driver.
Nice.
Current Cup Series driver. Officially my favorite.
Taking over Denny Hamlin?
Denny Hamlin's not my favorite.
Who was your favorite before Gilliland?
I didn't have one. I just liked a handful of drivers, right? Like I like Denny Hamlin.
Okay.
Like Bowman, Bubba, Reddick, so like some guys. I like Ross. I know other people don't, but I like him. So I just have a bunch of drivers I like. But Gilliland is officially my favorite. Nice. A new favorite driver. I haven't had a favorite NASCAR driver since Paul Menard. In terms of the Cup Series. And then before that, of course, was Jeff Gordon, who Jeff Gordon goes on my pantheon of all-time favorite drivers across all of motorsports. Right. It's Jeff Gordon, Greg Moore, and Kyle Kirkwood. Not in that order, just those are my 3 all-time, like, ride or dies. But, I've had favorites. It's been Jeff Gordon forever. Then it was Paul Menard while Paul Menard was here. I've liked other drivers, but I haven't had, like, a favorite. Todd Gilliland is now a favorite.
So what makes him such your favorite? Any
He's
specific
funny.
Reasons?
He's funny.
Yeah.
He's nice.
He's tall as shit.
He's tall as shit. He tells it like it is, like the Carson host of our stuff, which I like. Yeah. Not afraid to, say that. And so it's good stuff. And he knows he's the DFS betting love of the world. So he definitely embraces that, I think. Although, I do think he wishes he was qualifying better, per Jim Sonis telling me that. Because then the place differential wouldn't be as effective on things like DraftKings.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely shout out Todd Gilliland. He's having a hell of a season. Not enough people are talking about it. Even when he's running up front, he's not getting the recognition that he kind of deserves from the broadcast, which sucks. But he's outrunning Austin Cindric. He's outrunning Josh Berry. He's outrunning a lot of these bigger guys legitimately now. Like, that team is on fire right now, which is actually a very good segue into the news of the week. Several things coming up. First off, Noah Gragson's going to Front Row Motorsports. A lot of people thought this would happen, and they made it official today. Didn't announce a number, didn't announce a crew chief, but Noah Gragson is going to Front Row. He's going to be joining Todd Gilliland, who's the second driver, and then they're going to have one more car driver to be announced there. I don't think either of us are going to be surprised by this move, but you think it's a good move for Front Row to grab a guy like Gragson?
Yeah, I think it's a good move for them. I mean, who else are they going to grab really at this point?
Right.
And Gregson's had a solid year, driving for Stewart-Haas Racing, which still isn't the biggest, best team, right? Their best car right now in terms of the point standings is Chase Briscoe, who's sitting there 16th in points, but not in the playoff picture. Noah Gragson is 80 points behind Briscoe. But remember, he had a 35-point penalty, not of his own fault, for some roof rails or something like that. So, 80 minus 35. He's really only 45 points behind his teammate Chase Briscoe, and would be ahead of Josh Berry in the points without that penalty there. So, yeah, it's a good move. And Noah Gragson, great driver in the Xfinity series. Didn't end up winning a championship, but he finished second and third in the championship in his final 2 years there. Was dominating, winning races left and right. And the only reason he didn't win it is because a guy named Ty Gibbs won. And, it's never a bad thing to lose to Ty Gibbs, neck and neck, for the playoffs the whole time. So it's a great move. Noah Gragson's a talented driver. He's much better mindset, state of mind this year than he was last year. He kind of reset this year after some of that stuff, the issues that he had, and he seems to be doing much better. And I think this is a great get for Front Row. I think it's a good move for Noah Gragson. So I think it's a win-win all around. Noah Gragson deserves to be a Cup driver. He's already proven he's one of the best in the Xfinity series, and he should be at the next level.
Yeah, I think a good thing for him is going to be the stability, because this year is his fourth different team in 4 years that he's racing for. And obviously Stewart-Haas Racing is shutting down. So he's going on a multi-year deal to Front Row. They are, an up and coming organization in the Ford camp. I know just a couple years ago they were typically a 25th to 30th place team. That's just not the case anymore. Like, we're seeing Gilliland run top 15. We saw McDowell win a race. McDowell gets top 10s occasionally. Like, they're up and coming. So I think overall it's a very good move for both parties. I think it's a good move for everybody involved, and the best possible scenario for everything going on.
If they're running 25th, whether it's Gilliland or McDowell, that's a bad day for them now, when that used to be kind of a good day for them 2-3 years ago.
Yep, and that's the fun stuff here, watching them. Other news out of Stewart-Haas Racing, you just mentioned him. Josh Berry is going to Wood Brothers Racing, taking over that 21 car from Harrison Burton. Again, it's one of those, they went out, they got potentially, the best possible driver out there for who they could get in that car, to get Harrison Burton out. I'm very interested to see how Barry does and who he gets paired with, because Rodney Childers is not following him. Well, he's the next one on my hit list to talk about where he's going next year and opinions on that. But Josh Berry to Wood Brothers Racing, we've seen that team be competitive. We talked about it last week. We've seen that team be competitive with Paul Menard in it, with Ryan Blaney in that car. We've seen this car be competitive. Do you think Josh Berry is the guy that can get them? I think pretty much anybody's going to be an improvement over Harrison Burton. Yeah. But how much of an improvement do you think Josh Berry can actually do for this team? Or is it just one of those scenarios where we got to get somebody, Josh Berry's there, grab him?
I think it's a little both. I think it's an improvement, but also that's just somebody there we got to grab. I think it puts him in that Benedetto Paul Menard range for this team.
Yep.
And I don't think it's quite the Blaney range. Blaney got a win for Wood Brothers Racing. Doesn't mean he can't win. Obviously, anything can happen at a super speedway. Anything can happen at like a Martinsville. But I don't know. I think it's kind of a side grade, not really an upgrade for Josh Berry. It's definitely an upgrade for Wood Brothers in terms of the driver. But as far as Josh Berry, I think it's just kind of a side grade for him. You go from a mid-pack team like Stewart-Haas Racing to a team that has traditionally run the mid-pack with drivers around Josh Berry's talent level. So it's definitely an upgrade for Wood Brothers. Harrison Burton didn't cut it. We did discuss this one last week, so don't need to continue too much here on this one.
Right. But the other big news and the big shock for me this week, as far as news dropping, not only was this kept under wraps, which typically doesn't happen with news in the NASCAR world, but Rodney Childers is going to Spire Motorsports to crew chief Corey LaJoie in that number 7 car next year. A lot of people are saying this is a pure money move. Spire backed up the Brinks truck, gave him all the money. Do you think that is an accurate statement? Obviously, we don't know the details. They don't release that type of stuff. But I was pretty surprised that Childers would go to Spire. I mean, obviously, they're investing a shit ton of money in this sport. They're investing a shit ton of money in their organization, which, that's another comment that's been going around is, they're just buying speed. That's what you need to do. Why is that a bad thing? I don't understand why that's a bad thing. But what they're doing is they got Michael McDowell. Obviously, they have Corey LaJoie. They got Carson Hocevar. Now they went and got arguably the best crew chief in the garage area with Rodney Childers coming in to take over the 17.
I mean, first of all, no, buying speed is what every team does, right?
Yeah. I don't understand speed, those comments,
so I don't care about that. No, I think this is. I honestly don't like. It's whatever. It's fine. Rodney Childers is a good crew chief. I think he gets a lot more like he's a great, amazing crew chief. Simply because he had Kevin Harvick, which also is a big upgrade, and just as a driver, and B, he's vocal on Twitter, right? Like I think that's part of it. The Twitter sphere loves Rodney Childers because Rodney Childers talks on Twitter, and I'm not saying he's a bad crew chief. I think, like I said, I think he's a good crew chief. Is he the best? I don't think so. Is he? If he was the best, why isn't Josh Berry running better than he is, right? It's why, obviously part of it is talent. So he has helped drivers run, Rodney Childers, I'm speaking of, has helped drivers run ahead of, where they could or should be running. But in recent years, if he's that good, why isn't Stewart-Haas Racing that good, right? Like, why aren't all their cars running up front, if he's such a good crew chief? What is missing there? If this guy is magic dust, why are their cars running so poorly? So... that's
and part of that was Harvick, but I mean the 4 was head and shoulders above the rest of the organization every single year.
That's my point. And now they're not. So if Rodney Childers was magic dust, why isn't the 4 running head and shoulders above this year? Why isn't Stewart-Haas Racing as a whole just taking everything Rodney Childers knows about cars and setups and running inside the top 10 week in and week out? And that's my point. Like, my point is Rodney Childers is just good. He's not great. I think he's just good.
I would argue that Josh Berry, like, it's also a timing thing, though. Like, we're halfway through their first season together, and I think it took them a little bit to gel.
But that doesn't. I'm not worried about that. I'm just talking setups in general. If Rodney Childers was this magic, great, world-class crew chief,
I don't think it clicks immediately. Is my point.
I'm not talking about immediately. I don't care. If you've been with Stewart-Haas Racing for however many years, and I'm not talking about Josh Berry, I'm talking about Stewart-Haas Racing. If this is the guy that has all the magic fairy dust for setups, all the knowledge, all the amazingness, why isn't that whole team better?
Because he works on one car. He doesn't run the entire.
But they share setups. They share information. That's not. My point is, if you're this amazing crew chief,
driving styles.
Not always.
Like him and Harvick were locked in together.
But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. We always talk about how RFK Racing found something in this test. Now they're better. Why is Stewart-Haas Racing never able to find something and be better? If Rodney Childers is this amazing crew chief, why are they never able to find these amazing setups that apply to the whole team and make them better?
To the whole organization. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. Outside. Yeah. Because they always had like their niches. Like Eric Almirola was always really good on short flats and certain tracks, but never really, I would say, improved, overall. So
yeah, like I said, I think he's good. I just don't think he's great. And I don't think Corey LaJoie isn't a great driver either. But I don't have the main reaction I see on Twitter is like, why would Rodney Childers do himself? Why is he going here? This is such a downgrade, working with Corey LaJoie. And then I see other people saying like, oh man, Corey LaJoie should be thanking his lucky stars they got Rodney Childers. I disagree with all those opinions. To me, it's just like whatever. It's just a driver crew chief pairing, and we'll see what happens. I don't think Rodney Childers is God crew chief, and I don't think Spire is terrible shitbox team either. They're obviously on the bottom few tiers of teams, but they're investing a ton in the sport. Gamebridge is investing in them. Potential Andretti future connections that we've talked about a handful of times in this show. Spire's a growing team. It makes sense for Rodney Childers to go there. To me, this is like a big nothing burger. It's like a crew chief moved. It's whatever. To me, this is whatever.
I was surprised Ford let him go though. I thought he might stay in the Ford camp. Like maybe Penske would pick him up or something. And maybe they tried to, but
where would he go in Penske?
I don't know. I'm not convinced that Blaney's crew chief is that good.
Well, I think Blaney's pit crew sucks, but that's also another thing.
That's also but
that's much more measurable than other things.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not think Blaney's crew chief is good, but they just won a championship.
I know. Don't get me wrong. I know. But no, I was kind of, or even like the first rumor was him staying with Barry and going to Wood Brothers. But
yeah, I don't think if I'm Rodney Childers, what do I want from my storied career? It's not to go to a one-car team that gets side support from Penske. That's been kind of like half-assing it for the last decade anyway, right. In terms of Wood Brothers. Like, I want to go to a team that wants to be in NASCAR, that wants to grow, that wants to, So that's what I would do. So it's either go with Gragson to FRM or the third FRM car, whoever that may be. Or did they already announce the third FRM car? I don't think so.
No, they haven't yet.
They haven't, yeah. Or it's go to Spire. And I think, of those two, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Doesn't really matter.
I will note, speaking of Spire, though, they do a good job of keeping news under wraps. That's not very typical in the NASCAR world. Like I said, that Childers news came out of nowhere, and I think the McDowell news came out of nowhere, if I remember right. I got a tweet this morning about that. I'm like, actually, I think that's what happened there. So, but let's get right into wine about it. How about that?
Absolutely.
I know you have a good one.
All right.
You going first, or you want me to?
About it. I'll go first. The wine about it, of course, presented by Aluvabella Wines. Make sure to get all your Luvabella wines, either online or in stores in the states they offer them. Also, Brew Kettle, amazing beers. So Jordan will give the whole spiel later. But my wine about it is people on Twitter, this past Sunday, while it's raining in Chicago and there's rain delays on it, Daytona is dry. Why aren't we there at Daytona? Like, dude, you know how many times it's rained for the Daytona summer race? Like, you know how often it rains in Daytona? Like, all the time. You can't say, I told you we should be in Sure, maybe traditionally having the race there is nice and you want to go back to that, but you can't use rain as the reason why. That's literally the worst reason you could give. Plus, if they had just started the Chicago race 2 hours earlier, you wouldn't have the rain issue to talk about. So, like, it's just so dumb. Like, it's honestly, it's a short whine about it. I know you had said something, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a side tangent to my whine about it. I forget what it was now, but
I think it was the scheduling,
the concert type stuff, the scheduling. Yeah, like, and then I see people saying, well, they can't run it earlier because of concerts. I'm like, move the damn concerts. They can't run it earlier because IndyCar. Well, NBC, yes, they have both IndyCar and NASCAR, but it's not like they haven't shown IndyCar on one channel before and NASCAR on the other, USA, and NBC on different channels before, or Peacock, or these various things. So they have options. They've thrown in IndyCar on CNBC before during rain delays or other things that happen where IndyCar is the lesser of the programming options on the NBC family of networks. So I don't buy any of that BS of like concerts. Either have the concerts earlier as well, or have them after, or just don't have them, or fewer of them. Or I don't buy the IndyCar excuse, right? There's always ways to juggle that around. Maybe NBC should have more of a say. I guess it's going to be Fox next year, obviously, when IndyCar and Fox. But NBC should have had more of a say in scheduling these to better times. And yes, maybe this was the best time for NBC in terms of like viewership windows and ratings. But then that puts the rain issue, right? So I can't blame NASCAR for starting at 5 Eastern, 4 local, because a lot of it is TV driven. But the whole idea is, that it's not just go to Daytona as the solution, because that's stupid. And we'd be still running into some of the same issues if they went to Daytona. Yeah,
especially like the rain. Like, summer in Florida is always rain. Like, there's pop-up showers everywhere down there. So, my wine about it, again, presented by Luvabella Winery.
Oh yeah.
Is actually not going to deal with the Cup Series. This is how far down the rabbit hole I've gotten with my wine about it.
Oh boy.
It's going to deal with Hailee Deegan parting ways with her Xfinity Series team. And the sentiment on Twitter and pretty much everywhere from people was, Joey Logano got in that car this last weekend at Chicago Street Course, finished top 10, finished 8th. And everyone's saying, see, that shows you how awful Hailee Deegan is. It wasn't the car, it's her. Okay. You just put a fucking Cup Series champion in a Chicago Street Course race. And yes, he had a good race. That doesn't immediately disprove or prove that the car isn't still a mid-tier car. I'm not sitting here and defending Hailee Deegan and saying that she's a great racer, but you cannot compare apples to apples here when you got Joey Logano, who has won a shit ton of races, not only in the Xfinity Series, but the Cup Series as well, is a champion. Like, putting him in that car, obviously he's going to perform significantly better. You need to focus on the fact that Hailee Deegan got brought up just because she had major sponsorship behind her and should have never gotten brought up into the Xfinity Series in the first place. Like, they need to actually have a development path for her to actually get on a path to find success. She was screwed from the beginning when it comes to this Xfinity Series experiment, and unfortunately, it got cut short. But to sit here and say, oh, there's one race, and the fact that Joey Logano can run this car and finish 8th shows how big of a different. Obviously, there's a skill gap between Joey Logano and Hailee Deegan. What are you talking about? But Joey Logano was not in If the car isn't, kind of mid-tier, Joey Logano would have been competing for that win, and he was nowhere near the win. So
yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. Hailee Deegan's not good. She's terrible.
That was my point.
Right, but
my side point.
But they ran a car last year, AM Racing, and Brett Moffitt ran 17th in the standings and was getting a few top 10s and a bunch of top 10s and a few top 5s even. So, I mean, the car has the ability to run between, 8th and 22nd week in and week out, and she's running between 18th and 30th or 32nd week in and week out, 10 spots worse. So the car has the ability, this team has the ability to be better. And I don't think the car is as bad as people make it out to be. And I think Joey Logano showed that, right? Joey Logano is not a good road course racer. He's okay. He's maybe mid-tier road course racer in terms of talent. And so the fact that he took this to a top 10 finish, Hailee Deegan hasn't even sniffed the top 10. Her best finish was 12th at Talladega, but if you remove non-draft, or if you remove drafting ovals, right, her best finish this year is 15th at Las Vegas. And you just look at her history in the Truck Series. She said 3 years in the Truck Series. And so I don't even know if I agree with the development part. She's been in the Truck Series. She ran for a good team last year, Thorsport Racing, that has won multiple championships in the Truck Series, and she ran 19th in the Truck Series. That's not good.
Yeah, I'm not, like I said, I'm not defending Hailee Deegan as a good driver.
No, I didn't say you were. I'm just saying in general, the AM Racing equipment is not as bad as people are making it out to be.
But we also know the whole situation of Hailee Deegan and why she has these rides, and it's because she has the Monster sponsorship. That's all it is. It's not her talent that's getting her these rides.
Right.
And we don't need like these specific scenarios to prove it. Like, this should be common sense on this shit.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my, like I said, and that's what NASCAR is now. You can buy rides. Why does Austin Dillon have a fucking ride in the Cup Series? Because his grandpa owns the damn team. That's the only reason he has a Cup ride. Why does Cindric have a Cup ride? Because of his father. Like, we see it all the time. So I'm honestly,
why did Harrison Burton have a Cup ride? Because
exactly.
He's a Burton.
Yeah. Why does Daniel Hemrick have a Cup ride? I honestly don't know the answer to that one.
Come on, man. You're the guy who's making $1 million week in and week out on this guy and top 10 finishes.
It's gonna be my new shtick.
Daniel Hemrick is part of my reasoning for one of my bets this week.
I'm curious to hear about that. I get us right into Pocono, though, which, by the way, once again, Wine About It, presented by Luvabella Winery. Make sure that you check them out, luvabella.com. You can get wine shipped directly to your door. Trust me, they are worth it. You will not find a bad one. Well, there's a couple of them I don't like, but most of them I really do like. Very good stuff. The ones
you don't like, I probably do like. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But gets us into Pocono. First off, he might be joining this podcast. Not sure yet. I told him to call in if he had the time. But Stephen Malazzi announced today. Longtime fan of this podcast, and obviously we are fans of his. He will be running double duty this weekend. He's running the truck race and the Xfinity race. News broke today that he's going to be doing that. So excited to see how he can do. Last year he ran the truck race at Pocono, and that was the race where the big wreck happened in front of him, and I still don't know how the hell he missed it. I think he ended up like 22nd or something, somewhere in the 20s, high 20s. So. Hopefully we can see. I'm excited to see how he can do. I'm kind of pissed off I can't get to Pocono on Saturday to go to the Xfinity race. I was trying to pull it. I just can't. I can't make it work with my schedule. But so shout out Stephen Malazzi. Hopefully he can still call in here and we can talk to him. But we're on to Pocono, one of Nick's favorite racetracks. Here's where I want to start, because Pocono is such a unique track. It is such a big track. The best comparison over the years has always been Indy Oval. We have not raced Indy Oval with this next-gen car. So when we are, and we've only had 2 races in this next-gen car at Pocono. So when we're sitting here and we're trying to handicap Pocono for this upcoming race weekend, what are your top things that you're looking at this week to try to get a handle on who's going to be good here? Because this is such a, it's a huge track. It's 2.5 mile track, 3 completely different corners, and it's also flat. Horsepower plays a big part here. There's a giant straightaway. They're going to be hitting over 200 miles an hour on the straightaway. What are we looking at this weekend, heading into this Pocono race, as far as who to look out for and everything else?
Well, number one is speed. If you got speed, you're going to, have a good chance at Pocono. So how have you been performing this year, let's say? Or your current team's relative speed at an average, let's say an average track, right? Now, I'm not saying Pocono's an average track. I'm just saying, where is your current baseline equipment level and performance level compared to all the other teams? That's number one. That's easily number one in my model. And number two is the large flat tracks, Pocono and Indy. And, I use data going all the way back, and it doesn't matter which car we're in. The
same guys are
how you've done
well
in the large flat tracks is important. And so actually my track type, I always have my track quality metric. Well, I have a track type quality metric as well. And the large flats is one of the biggest factors. This is where like type quality matters more than almost any other track or types of track is the large flats. So how good are you at large flats really matters, like your actual talent level at the large flats. And I've noticed there's 2 kinds of drivers that, other than like your drivers that are good everywhere, right? Your Larsons, your Hamlins, your Truexes, yada, yada, yada. There's 2 kinds of drivers that tend to excel at Pocono, which I think, funny enough, is, there's an exception on one specific driver, but road course drivers pop out a little bit. Michael McDowell, AJ Allmendinger, both really good at the large flats. Both have really high track quality ratings. And then what I would call like your wheelmen, right? Which I hate that freaking term,
I was just about to call you out on that.
I know. But your Eric Joneses, your Ross Chastains, your Ricky Stenhouse Juniors, those kinds of guys who are just like hauling the mail all the time. Those guys tend to stand out. And then Bubba Wallace, for whatever reason. Like, I don't put him in either category, but Bubba Wallace is really, really good at the large flats.
Yeah, which, that is... I'm still shocked. I couldn't believe it when I saw the line of Bubba Wallace's finishing position on Caesars, over under 15.5. Immediate bet for me on the under. I could not pass that up, and I know you have a few bets this week as well. We'll get into those, but I'm right there with you with Bubba Wallace. It's one of those, I looked at it and I'm like, this makes no sense. I don't understand this.
I mean, I said it last week on our show, on our podcast.
Yeah.
Like, when Bubba lines drop, I'm betting us outright. Like,
yeah. Because you even go back to the Indy Oval, and I think he had 2 straight top 10s, or even maybe in the top 5 in there at Indy Oval when they did run it. So. Yeah. Really, yeah, Bubba Wallace, and another thing, and you don't really want to factor this in or like too heavily, but they need a good run. Like, if they're going to keep their playoff chances alive, they need a good run.
Well, I agree. They need a really good run. And here's the thing: we alluded this a little bit, when we were doing the season preview and who can win where, but strategy comes into play at Pocono, and you could be on a winning strategy or a points racing strategy. You could stay out at the end of stage 2 and collect your points, but a lot of people are going to pit before the end of stage 2 because, they can get their tires and all that stuff under yellow and have fresh tires. And some people pit after stage 2, but then there will be people that split it in weird ways where, like, you don't pit at the end of stage 2, but you can make it far enough into stage 3 that then you can just pit there and make it to the end of the race. So that could still put you in a winning strategy, but the issue with that strategy is then you have to like save fuel a ton. You're not going to have tires at the end. You're going to have a really long fill. If it stays green, like, you need a caution on that strategy usually to make it work, because you'll have poor tires, long pit stop, manage fuel, all that kind of stuff. So it tends not to be a winning strategy if you go for that stage 2 points. So Bubba Wallace is going to go on whatever strategy gets him the win, because as we talked about on the point standings playoff preview, he needs to win. He's almost surely not pointing his way in. That team has to be thinking win. Anybody outside right now needs to be thinking win, but your Buschers, your Ross Chastains, and your Ty Gibbs could be thinking points, right? So that does change the capping a little bit. And I'm less reliant on that stuff this week. Then we'll be able to see what they all do this week and apply it next week to Indy as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
We'll really be able to get an idea on the Chastains, the Gibbs, the Bushers, and even Bubba. Maybe they think they can still points race their way in or something. Those kinds of things we can get an idea on. But honestly, if you're Bubba, I think you have to go for the win here. So that makes me like him even more, that I think he's going to be on an optimal strategy.
Yeah, and I think that's where the road course
and two guys that are really good
here,
Ty Gibbs and Ross Chastain especially, could be on a point strategy. So that opens up some extra win equity if that's the case. Sorry, go ahead.
And I think that's where the road course aspect of things come into play here at Pocono, because this is such a big track and you can make a green flag pit stop and not go a lap down. So one guy that has been phenomenal here, both races in the next gen era, Denny Hamlin. He opens as the favorite at all sports books. He's 4-1 at most. He's sitting at FanDuel at plus 490. Any interest in betting Hamlin outright before practice and qualifying?
No, but he definitely should be the favorite. 100%. Yeah. I have him highest in my model at 15.5% to win. But that only equates to around plus 540. And I think, like you said, the best out there is around plus 490 on Denny Hamlin at FanDuel. So not quite there, but absolutely, deserves to be the race favorite. If he wins, he's just going to beat all my outright bets. And that's kind of what's been happening this year for a lot of it. Like, a lot of the favorites have been winning. They've been a little too short for me to bet on them. And any other outright bets I make are then toast, because the books honestly are probably, I don't know how they're doing this year, but I bet they're actually probably losing simply because a lot of the favorites have been winning. People love betting the favorites, right? So yeah, it's an interesting year. But like the week Christopher Bell won at New Hampshire, he was at best the third place car, and everybody's pounding Christopher Bell, and then they get lucky and bailed out by the rain there, right? And like Christopher Bell pops in the rain. I mean, it's one of those years where the favorites just seem to win. So I wouldn't be surprised if Denny Hamlin wins this weekend, because he should be the favorite for sure.
You mentioned did you bet Bubba outright yet?
Yeah, absolutely. Bet him 41-1 at FanDuel.
Yep, that's where he's sitting at. Any of these longer shot guys you think, Daniel Suarez has a decent history here. He's sitting at 100-1. Like Michael McDowell, someone you mentioned, is having speed. Not to mention, I like Michael. That's another guy's finishing position that I really like on Caesars. I haven't bet it yet, but I'm talking myself into it more and more as I think about it. It's at, I think, 18.5 or 19.5. I'm thinking of betting the under. It's at minus 105. I really like that as well.
Yep, I like Michael McDowell a lot this week. I have his. Now, this isn't his average finishing position for the whole thing. This is his average finishing position if he does not DNF. My model says it'll be, and this is average, not median again still, so there's little differences there. But if he doesn't DNF, we're looking at around 15.5 is what the line should be.
Okay. Yeah, I think you just convinced me to bet that.
But that's if he doesn't DNF. Now, there's still a chance of having or I shouldn't say DNF, but a major issue. And then, that would raise that to around 16.5, 17.5, because what are the chances you have a major issue at Pocono? It's, I'd say on average around 15%. So it certainly changes the math, but you're right. I do like Michael McDowell this weekend. I think under 18.5 is a solid bet.
Yeah. And another thing I like is I think the Fords are going to be really good in qualifying just because they have that horsepower.
Yep.
And we've seen starting position mean a lot at Pocono. I think last year, 8 of the top 10 finishers started in the top 10. So if Michael McDowell can come through and get a solid qualifying position, I like that line as well. Like I said, I'm in on Bubba. I think I'm going to be in on McDowell as well for as far as finishing position. But some of these other guys, like I said, Suarez is sitting there at 100-1. You got someone like a Chris Buescher who has won at Pocono before due to the fog. He's sitting at 31-1. Bowman's at 34-1. Logano, who has, I believe he has a couple Pocono victories. He's sitting at 28-1. Even Chastain, you mentioned him. He's 30-1 over at Bet Rivers. Are we thinking any of these guys can get up there and contend? Or is it going to be the typical guys again?
Well, both Buescher and Chastain need to worry about points, right? So
yep.
It makes it tough to bet them, even though I especially like Ross, and I'll talk a lot about him, I think, at some point. But if we look at my track type quality metric, Buescher, of the 34 drivers I have good enough data for in the Cup Series, he's only 20th, right? So he's bottom half in the type quality. So, yeah, he won here, but it was obviously a very fluky win. He was 500 to 1 to win that race, and it fog out, just won on pure strategy. Chris Buescher, last year was good. He was 8th in speed. But if we look at 2020, now I know when we get further and further back, it's less and less relevant because of some of the things that RFK has done to improve. But he was 14th in 2022 in flags. And in 2021, which was not next-gen car, but we had that doubleheader, he was 28 average from the doubleheader in flags. So, again, both of those were negative or at best neutral track quality ratings for him in 2021 and 20, right? Like in 2021, he was 28th in flags, but he wasn't a 28th place car for the whole season, right? So that's kind of the thing when I'm looking at type quality. Like, how did you do compared to your full season result? And Buescher in 2021 did not do as well at Pocono in terms of speed. Now, he finished 20th and 19th, but in terms of speed, he didn't do as well as his full season speed or results. And same thing for 2022. Now, last year, could even say the same thing. Like, technically, 8th last year was worse than his full season point standings, especially as he came on later in the year, right? He won 3 races after Pocono. That team, you know, an 18th place finish at Pocono and being a borderline top 10 car in speed actually was probably worse than he did the last half of that season overall. So I'm not super interested in Buescher, but, you know, I definitely understand why people would be on Buescher, given he's had some good runs this year at some intermediate tracks and, you know, showed some top 10 potential last year. But I really like, of the two, I would rather pick Ross. Ross's track quality metric here actually is worse than Buescher's, but that is super misleading. So my track quality metric uses other performances metrics that because I created this before flags, uses other metrics that isn't as good a representation of true speed. Now, when I look at flags on Ross Chastain, he is absolutely dinged in 2021 by speed. Like, if you look at like green flag speed or average running position, he's dinged there because he had major incidents in the first of the 2 Pocono races in 2021. And remember, this is when he was with Ganassi racing. He had a major incident in the first of the 2, but prior to the major incident, which is what flags looks at, is when your car was healthy. Ross Chastain in that first race in a Ganassi car was 6th in flags in that first Pocono race. Then the second Pocono race, he was in, I don't remember if it was a backup or repaired. I think he had to repair the car, right? Because it was like one car for the whole weekend when we were doing like COVID rules. Oh, yeah. So they had to repair a car that he had wrecked. He started 33rd, and he was still 17th in flags prior to fuel saving. So like everybody went in fuel saving mode. So prior to that, because it like threw everybody's speed off in flags, it gets kind of jumbled there. Ross Chastain was 17th, despite having started 33rd and having to work his way through the field. So then you go to 2022. Ross Chastain was 3rd in flags. Remember, he had that incident with Denny Hamlin right there at the end of the race, or last couple of restarts there. So Ross Chastain was 3rd in flags 2 years ago. Now, last year they weren't good. They weren't good. But that's like the exception to the rule for Ross Chastain. You look at Xfinity, you look at trucks, Ross Chastain absolutely slays Pocono and Indy when he's not having issues. Now, is it beyond Ross Chastain to have issues? Of course, he's an aggressive driver. But I think given the state he's in, he almost can't be overly aggressive that he might have to points race. So I don't mind a top 10 finish on Ross Chastain. And given my model uses track quality, which I think is being severely underestimated in Ross Chastain because of the way I calculate track quality, I have him at 51.5% to finish in the top 10, and you get him out there at even money for a top 10. So I think with a more proper track quality metric, he'd probably be closer to 60% to finish top 10. Now, You do need to ding that, I think, for potential strategy implications. But I think that brings it back closer to that 51, 52, 53% range, which is still better than even money. So I think I like Ross Chastain for a top 10 finish at even money. Haven't bet it, but I think I like it.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see because, Suarez has had good runs here in the past. He finished third in 2022 in that Trackhouse car.
He was seventh in flags when Ross was third that year, right?
Yeah, if they come with that kind of speed, I know that the optimal or the best strategy for Chastain is to be points racing, but I think if they have a race winning car, I could see Trackhouse taking the aggressive route and trying to win this damn race and just get in. Yep. Like smartness and conservativeness says points race, but if you have a car to win, I could see them just fucking going for it.
Absolutely.
Kyle Busch is another guy, very good at Pocono, very good at Indy. Obviously, there's concern there about where that car is, what kind of car is going to show up on the track. But if he has speed, I could see Kyle Busch somehow, factoring in here. I mean, you look at the, like, obviously this is when he was with Joe Gibbs Racing. So Joe Gibbs Racing last year in last year's Pocono race, Joe Gibbs Racing, 3 of the top 4 in driver rating, 3 of the finish wise, it was JGR 2311, JGR Stuart Haas, JGR for the top 6. Gibbs just has kind of a stranglehold on this track. When Kyle Busch was with Gibbs, here's his laps led. Just going race by race here. 63, 30, 30, 2-0, 56, 79, 52, 13, 74, 100. Kyle Busch was really good here. Last year, he started 25th. He finished 21st with Rodney Childers Racing. Obviously, we don't really know what kind of car he's going to come up with. But as far as betting-wise, he's 28-1. I can't see myself betting that. But he's someone that I want to keep an eye on this weekend just to see what he looks like and how they take this race.
He's definitely a post-practice and qualifying guy.
Yep.
Right? Like in terms of if we're betting on him. I ran my model, and it likes his win probability at 28-1, but it's super thin, right? Like I'm at 25-1 is fair, and you can get a 28-1, and if you're not getting the 28, 25 is the next best, and that's dead even, so I wouldn't bet that. And I look at his average finish in non-DNF simulations, and it's 10.5, 11. So his top 10, right? So 10.5 is essentially his over-under if he's not DNFing in my model. So, and he's even money to finish in the top 10. So you can't bet that because he's 50-50 per my model, and plus 100 is 50-50 implied odds. Plus then you have to add in the DNF probability. So it's like he's right there. Like my model is perfectly in line with the market on him. But if he shows speed and practice qualifying and the books don't adjust enough, that's where I could see myself getting in on Kyle Busch. But definitely you're right. I like him this weekend. It's just a matter of will all of it be there? Will it all come together? Is the speed going to be there? Is the driver going to be there? Because it does seem like at times he has checked out this year or given up or been frustrated. But all it takes is knowing he has a good car for that spark to be right back and Kyle Busch to be Kyle Busch.
Yep. I will note Caesars must have recently just dropped their top 10 odds. Chastain sitting at plus 115. Obviously, if you are on the fence with him at plus 100, you're going to like that plus 115. So if anybody wants Chastain, best odds right now are at Caesars plus 115. Looking at some other top 10 odds across the board, one guy that I'm on, we talked about him earlier, is Josh Berry, just because I feel like those guys have a little bit more speed. He was really good here in the Xfinity Series last year, led 50-something laps. Like I said, Childers and Kevin Harvick, even if he qualified shitty here at Pocono, always seemed to run top 10, top 5. So I did hit Josh Berry plus 450 for a top 10. It's one of those where odds varied wildly. He's plus 225 at Bet Rivers. He's plus 450 at Bet 365. So a little bit of FOMO for me. I was anticipating the line moving, so I grabbed Josh Berry. I just put $20 on it, at plus 450. Something to root for there. I know
to your point. Or I shouldn't say to your point, but you bet Josh Berry. led most laps in the Xfinity Series last year at Pocono. Finished third the year before at Pocono. So pretty solid track for him based off of his Xfinity results. And in the Truck Series, when he raced for Rackley in 2021, it tied his second best finish of the season was at Pocono.
I like to hear that. Yeah, he has not made a Cup Series start here, so there's that unknown aspect of it. And you never really know where, like Josh Berry's one of those guys qualifying wise, he's either going to go out and start 30th or he's going to make the final round.
Caesars has him 4-1. I think I like that.
If you have 365, I think he's still plus 450 there.
That's right. Action's not pulling in the Bet 365 odds right now. We always have they always change their like way to pull the data there at Bet 365. So I don't work on the engineering team or anything like that, but every so often the engineering team has to go back and like re-engineer the code to auto pull the stuff. And since NFL and Major League Baseball and NBA and hockey and all these other things take priority over NASCAR, it's always the last one that gets fixed, and I have to kind of specifically point it out. But yeah, Josh Berry still plus 450, top 10 finish at Bet 365. Ross Chastain's plus 130.
Well, plus 130. I was just about to point that out. And another guy that has a little bit longer odds here, Alex Bowman at plus 160. He's plus 110, or he's even money over at Bet Rivers, so a little bit of a discrepancy there. Bowman has a win here at Pocono. That race that Larson blew that tire at the last lap, but last 5 races he's finished 11th or better 4 times. He was 5th in stage 2 last year. I don't remember what happened for him to finish 24th, but Bowman, I guess I haven't bet it, but another one of those. I think I might be on Chastain plus 130. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think I might be on Berry plus 450 now. So I'll have to give that out on Running Hot and shout you out for that one. We'll see. I've decided on 3 of my 4 Running Hot turn picks or whatever, but I haven't decided on the 4th. Maybe it'll be Ross plus 130. Maybe it'll be Berry plus 450. It'll be something else. I have a couple other bets I'm eyeing as well.
Yeah, you mentioned some of these longer shot guys. So someone like a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is sitting at 8-1 for a top 10 finish. He finished 7th here last year. He was 18th the year before, 15th in 2021, 15th in 2020, 17th in 2020. So looking at the last 6 races at Pocono, he blew an engine in 2021, but every other race he's finished 18th or better. Are you on Stenhouse 8-1 for a top 10 finish?
Not for top 10, but I am on Stenhouse. That is one of the bets I am giving out on Running Hot is a Stenhouse bet. So you'll just have to stay tuned. But yeah, I like Ricky Stenhouse this week.
Yeah, make sure you check out Running Hot this week with Nick and
definitely like
Stevie
Stenhouse
TPFL. Yeah.
He was one of those when I was mentioning, there's 2 types of drivers that excel here, the road course drivers and the wheelmen or whatever. He was one of those I was definitely thinking of because he like Eric Jones, Ross Chastain, those are kind of like your balls to the wall type guys, and they push hard and they get more out of their equipment sometimes than they also can sometimes suck more than their equipment, but they sometimes can get a lot more out of their equipment than you think.
Mm-hmm. So Eric Jones is one of those, definitely has a great track record here. He's been 9th in the 2 next gen era races, despite starting 24th and 34th. That race that he started 34th in 2022, finished 5th in stage 1, 3rd in stage 2, came home 9th in the end. In 12 career starts at Pocono, Eric Jones has finished 9th or better 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for 12. He's 75%. Finishing top 10. He is sitting at 5-1. You can get him for a top 10 finish over on BetMGM. Is that worth taking it? Or I feel like where Jones and that team is right now, because they are so bad in qualifying, it's one of those wait till after qualifying bets. If you like Jones for a top 10, I would rather wait till after qualifying because he's never even really been a great qualifier here when he has good cars.
Yeah, I haven't really considered Jones this week. I think a little too short at 5-1, given how that team's been performing recently. They just haven't been amazing. So, of the two, like if I'm looking here, trying to find my right one, but if I'm looking at things like the average finish or the probability to win, Jones and Stenhouse are like right near each other, and Stenhouse is 8-1 and Jones is 5-1, right? So
yeah,
I can't quite get there on Jones, whereas I do like Ricky Stenhouse and Jones relatively equally. But I think it's one of those spots where Jones is a guy to keep an eye on. Like you said, they haven't been qualifying great, so maybe we get better odds later. But when we do look at my track, or I should say my type quality metric, Eric Jones is number 2 in track type quality of all the drivers, behind only Daniel fucking Hemrick.
God. Oh, I'm not betting Daniel Hemrick this weekend. FYI, I'm not.
No, I'm not either. And I'm not saying bet Daniel Hemrick. But although this is a decent track type for him, even if you look at Xfinity Truck Series results, this is honestly a decent track type for him. A good track type for him, let's be real. So, but I'm not betting Daniel. Maybe I should. So here's the one I wanted to get to was, I think you were going to get there next, was AJ Allmendinger, right? Like that's who I'm all in on AJ Allmendinger this week. I love him. And given the fact that Daniel Hemrick is suddenly a top 12 machine, why wouldn't you like AJ Allmendinger? No, but jokes aside, last year Colleague had the 11th and 16th best cars in green flag speed.
Don't
AJ
you
Allmendinger
dare get me on betting Daniel Hemrick again, Nick.
AJ Allmendinger was in that same spot in flags. So AJ Allmendinger has a really good track type quality rating here. So I like AJ Allmendinger this week. And maybe I should like him even more. Or I should say maybe I should like Daniel Hemrick even more.
I don't know if I can do it 2 out of 3 weeks. I don't know if I can. 25-1. He's on Hemrick's 25-1 at BetMGM.
I saw Todd Furman tweet. I saw Todd Furman tweet. If you just blindly bet Daniel Hemrick top 10s this year, you're profitable. He's only had 3.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, just the one from Nashville is
exactly.
Guaranteed profit.
Yep.
Oh,
funny
man.
Stuff. And then Dover, right? Like.
Yep.
But yeah.
Which was why I bet him at Nashville. That's funny. Oh, shit. Oh, man. Gosh. If he creeps up to the 30s, I'll bet him. Mid 30s or better, I will.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you on Allmendinger. You look at his performance here, his career record here at Pocono, 17th in 2023. Before that, he was a constant, 7th to 23rd place car when he was driving for JTG at this track. So. Definitely,
and again, his 17th place finish last year was unlucky, right? He was a top 12 car.
Yeah, he finished 5th in stage 1 last year. So
Hailee had stage points last year too, and was a top half car, right? Finished 16th. I should say no. Finished worse than that, I believe. He DNF finished 33rd, but he had in terms of prior to his issues, he had a top half car in flags.
Gosh, I'm gonna stop shopping Daniel Hemrick lines. I'm gonna stop. I need to stop myself. What do you think? What do we think about a couple other guys that are some longer shots? I hate how much the market has adjusted to Todd Gilliland because I'm not betting him plus 550 for a top 10. It's just not gonna happen. Let's go back up to some of these, kind of the favorites. When we look recent races at Pocono, William Byron's been up there as far as average driver rating goes. Started on the pole last year. He led 60 laps. Don't remember what happened, but he's led laps in 1, 2, 3, 5 of the last 9 Pocono races. He's led at least 10 laps. Could this be he admitted that he's kind of in a slump right now? Could this be the week that Byron kind of gets back on track? It seems like, once again, we talked about it last year, William Byron specifically, but Hendrick Motorsports kind of as well. They go through this little summer slump, and it seems like Byron's kind of in it right now again. This could be the race where he gets back on track, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good track for him. I was looking at another bet where it was involving Byron and Elliott in a group, and I was looking at both like Byron and Elliott in terms of like where are they relative to each other. And it's funny because if we just directly compare finishes at Indy and Pocono in the races they've raced together, Elliott and Byron are 5-5 at Pocono, and then Elliott's 2-1 at Indy, or I think 3-0 at Indy, or something like that in terms of finishes. So Elliott's been better, and in terms of speed, Elliott leads as well. I think it's 8-5 or something like that in terms of speed. But in terms of type quality rating, Byron's ahead of Elliott. So like a lot of that is Byron was younger, was more of a rookie, and so maybe his speed wasn't there yet, and Elliott had already been in the series for 3 years when Byron got there, 2 years plus some when Byron got there. So it could have been a little learning curve type stuff for Byron, and recently Byron's been a little bit better than Elliott, but given the odds, I was kind of considering Elliott for that group bet. So the FanDuel group that has both of them, I think it is Elliott's like plus 370, and then there's Ty Gibbs in the group and Truex, and I'm like, well, if Ty Gibbs ends up points racing, and Truex is just kind of his 8th place Truex or something, Elliott I think has some decent upside in that group, but. Yeah, I like Byron. He's been really good here, especially recently. So, but you're right. Always the Hendrick kind of slump this time of year, type of year. But I don't know.
Is it the time to buy low on Byron? Because like we haven't talked about Byron. Nobody's really talked about Byron that much lately.
Is it the time to buy low on Elliott?
Yeah, and that's true, and which is weird to say because he just gets the bump for being the most popular driver, but. I think both of those are definitely candidates for kind of not sleeper picks, but kind of like they're still here picks. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm on Fanatics Sportsbook right now, which they do a daily profit boost, 20%, gets Daniel Hemrick to 36-1 for a top 10, and
oh my god, what have
fuck it, I'm doing it. This is your fault, Nick.
I apologize for costing you money.
I'm only throwing $10 on it. $10, Daniel Hemrick, 36-1. But you know what? You know what's going to happen? He's going to end up being my most profitable driver this year, and somehow, some way, he's going to end up being my most profitable driver this year, and I'm going to have to like him. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, that's disgusting.
This is disgusting. All right, it's in. It's in. 36-1. Daniel Hemrick. Damn it, I hate myself. Oh shit. So what do you think what about Chevy versus Toyota?
I'm going to give the edge to Toyota because 4 of the top 5 in my 4 of the top 5 and 6 of the top 8 in my model are Toyotas.
I agree. Could we see? I'm very curious to see how Tyler Reddick does this weekend as well. Always strong. I mean, second place finishes in the 2 next gen era races here. Obviously has the Toyota speed. Has been strong here. Has been strong at Indy. Truex is going to be strong. He's always strong here. Like this track just sets up so well for guys like Hamlin, guys like Truex, guys like Reddick as well. But one guy that we haven't really talked about, he's a previous winner here, Ryan Blaney. He's had issues the last 2 races here, but when he doesn't have issues, he's typically a solid top 10 guy here. What do we think about a guy like Ryan Blaney and his teammate Joey Logano, who's a previous winner here at Pocono as well?
Yeah, I just think Blaney's kind of he's good at Pocono. He's not amazing at Pocono. Obviously got his first career win here when it was with Wood Brothers. But he's been kind of hit or miss at Pocono if you look throughout the years. And if you look at his type quality metric, it's just neutral, right? So this is just like a whatever track for Ryan Blaney. It's not an amazing track for him. It's not a terrible track type for him. So I just feel like whatever on Blaney. Certainly,
I think
16-1 is interesting, but I haven't bet it myself.
I saw Jim bet it. He got it at 17. Yeah. But here's my not case against Blaney, but here's my why I'm not particularly on Blaney. Two top fives in his career here, 14 starts. But you look at his driver rating, even in his win, his best driver rating at Pocono came with his win at the Wood Brothers. He started 4th. He won the race. Driver rating was 105.6. He's only had 3 races ever of a driver rating over 100, which does not tell me that this is a great track for him by any means.
Right.
Obviously he has issues that's going to bring stuff down, but it's one of those. He probably gets a good finish more likely due to having good track position on the final restart, as opposed to, or having a good strategy overall in the race, as opposed to having a great car.
Yeah. And I love Jim. We're really good friends. We always talk every week. I think this is probably the track where our models are the biggest difference, maybe all year. And it's, I noticed it last year too, and I'm totally okay with that. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to have differing models and have differing opinions, because when Jim and I are always the same, it gets kind of boring, because often we are very much the same in our models. But right. I know just from talking to him in years past, I know he pulls in a lot more of like the high horsepower tracks and stuff. I just haven't found that to be as predictive, and I don't pull in the data. Again, I let the feature selection algorithm do it. So. But I always think it's good to model average. And if Jim is high on Blaney, I would never say go against Jim Sanas, because he's one of the people I respect most in this industry.
Yeah, I know a lot of people pull in Michigan due to the high horsepower. They pull in Auto Club.
I just haven't found that. I haven't found that to improve predictions. And in fact, I've found it to make it a little worse. I don't mind Michigan in years past where Michigan, it was like Pocono, Michigan, Pocono, or something like that, or Michigan, Pocono, Michigan, because you had a Michigan before Pocono at some point. And they were all kind of relatively in the same kind of year, or same time of year. But now Michigan's after Pocono, and so while they are still relatively the same time of year, you can't really use last year's Michigan on this year's Pocono. You know what I mean?
Yep.
At least for me.
If anything,
so I think that's
now we're kind of pulling in Pocono now when we get to Michigan in a few weeks.
Exactly. I'd rather go the other way with it and pull Pocono into Michigan if I had to pick something.
Just like next
Michigan
week
into Pocono.
Yeah, next week at Indy, we're gonna have great data here from Pocono, because Indy and Pocono are so much similar. So we're gonna see a lot of the same guys over these next however many races. We're gonna see a lot of the same guys, I think, up front, because these tracks are relatively similar. Like I said, we have Pocono this week, we have Indy next week. We go to Richmond then, but then we go to Michigan, which, 3 of those 4 tracks are big tracks, and very similar. So, do you have anything else here for Pocono before we move on to our picks?
I guess if we want to get really into specific track versus type, so if I say the large flats, your type quality rating, we can get into where's the biggest difference between your type quality and your track quality to see if people really want to be on Bubba or not, that kind of thing. Because if we look, Bubba Wallace is better at Indy technically in his track quality than he is at Pocono. So if you wanted to wait on Bubba, if you had a 36 for 36, for example, maybe you wait to next week. And on the flip side, Daniel Suarez is the number 1 guy who's been better at Indy or that Pocono than Indy. Just subtle little differences here where this week, if you're looking at track versus type, Suarez, Elliott, and Allmendinger get the biggest track bump versus type. And then Bubba, Nemechek, and Chastain get the 3 worst, they're better at Indy than Pocono type bumps. But again, Chastain's is misleading, so I would maybe ignore him. Then it goes to JJ Yaley. I don't care about him. So then Joey Logano. So if you want to throw out Ross because of the weird stuff that happened at Pocono in his data, it would be Bubba, John Hunter Nemechek, and then Joey Logano, who are the 3 that are better at Indy than Pocono. in terms of top 3.
Okay.
But
you got anything else?
That's small differences. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying like I would much rather play Bubba next week than this week. It's very, very like tiny, subtle differences because the tracks aren't exactly comparable. So yeah, no, I don't really have too much else. I think we've talked about most of the relevant guys here.
Okay. So that gets us to our picks to win and 36 for 36. Once again, the Jordan Jinx hit. This is the official new Jordan Jinx. It is my picks to win on this show. Had Christopher Bell last week, which I firmly believe he had the best car after SVG. He ended up 37th after that late, whatever happened to him. He got put in the wall, I think. So I'm now the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 races. My finishes for picks to win are 37th, 24th, 9th, 10th, 37th, 2nd, 12th, and 25th. Meanwhile, you had Reddick last week at the Chicago Street Course. He finished 2nd. So another great finish there for you. You have taken a massive lead in average finish this year. And in addition to having 3 win picks this year, you are now at 9.35. I am at 13.55, going through an absolute hellacious stretch of bad picks. Good thing is, well, maybe not even a good thing. You go first this week for Pocono for your pick to win. Who you thinking ends up in victory lane?
Oh man, this is a tough one. Obviously I have Denny Hamlin number 1 on my model. But I just don't feel like I want to go super chalky with Hamlin. Now, it doesn't mean I don't want to go chalky. I do think I should pick somebody up here. It's tough. It's tough. Do I go Hamlin? Do I go Larson? Bell, Truex, Reddick, Byron? Right, those are my top 7. Not necessarily in that order. And Gibbs. Those are my top 7, not necessarily in that order. Don't think I'm picking Gibbs because of the potential for points type style racing. Could we see one of these guys, any of these guys, really grab a stage point? Absolutely. So it's tough. If we just look at like recent performance, though, I'm going to give it to Tyler Reddick. So I'm going to take Tyler Reddick to win. He is kind of on a roll here, in terms of just finishing well. So if he doesn't win, I still think he'll have a strong finish.
I like that pick. He's very high in my early week runs as well. Checking here quick. Yeah, he's 3rd for me. That's a good pick. Third time you've picked Reddick this year. You had him at Phoenix. He finished 10th, and then you had him last week at Chicago Street Course. Obviously finished 2nd, like you said. Always running strong here as of late. Now the question is, who do I want to jinx? Because this is reaching levels of ridiculousness.
It's reaching random fantasy racing levels.
It actually is. It actually is. Especially after, from Las Vegas through Texas, I didn't pick anyone outside of the top six, and from Vegas through Kansas, which is race 3 through race 12, I only had one guy outside of the top 6, and that was Eric Jones at Talladega. Yeah. So I am on an epic stretch of bad finishes here. So who do I want to jinx this week is how I'm looking at this. And I think I'm going to go for the plot here. I told you I want to see this guy miss the playoffs.
Oh my.
Give me Martin Truex Jr. to win Pocono this weekend. I've not officially put the betting Jordan Jinx on him, but I put the pick to win Jordan Jinx on him. Martin Truex Jr. is not finishing this race if there's anything I can guarantee. If you can bet on his over finishing position, do it. I'm telling you that right now because, man, I am beyond unlucky right now.
You can bet on his over finishing position at Caesars.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Over 7.5 even money.
Bet it. Hammer it. Fucking hammer it, guys. I'm telling you.
What do I have for his non-DNF finish? Oh, I have 9.6.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that over now that you've jinxed it as well.
Oh man. Oh man. I like these. By the way, I like these finishing position bets that Caesars is offering. I wish they did it on every driver.
I might have to take Truex over 7.5.
I might be there with you. I in addition to McDowell, I'm with you.
It looks silly because, I mean, his last two finishes are 3rd and 7th, and the only two next-gen finishes, right? So it looks silly, but he's been very hit at Pocono, but he's had a few misses. 2021, they weren't very good. 2020, they weren't amazing. He averaged an 8th place finish in the 2 races there. Yeah. Although he is one of those that's better at Pocono than Indy if we look at like the track versus type, quality type stuff, you know?
Yeah. I have him, my early run has him 7th. So right there on
exactly.
On the edge.
My early run has him and Byron neck and neck 6th and 7th.
That's funny. I have Byron 8th.
Yeah. I have Bubba 8th, so. But yeah,
nice.
Byron and Truex have neck and neck 6, 7, but that's not their average finish. That's just their, like, if you were to rank them, because the 7th place driver, given DNFs and just randomness, finishes worse than 7th more often than not.
Yeah. Accurate. Yep. So Jinx is officially on Truex. His over 7.5 might be the bet. But that's going to get us now to 36 for 36, which you had a solid week last week. Justin Hailee got you some pretty good points, got you 21 points at the Chicago Street Course. Obviously, McDowell came through for me with a top 5 finish. Did not get any stage points, though, which is what I was kind of hoping for. You know, my other guy was going to be Ty Gibbs. He only ended up with 42, though. Maybe I probably should have went Ty Gibbs, but still, I'll take 32 points out of Michael McDowell for this contest. Total now, I'm sitting at 503. You're sitting at 464. And then the plus minus from average ranking or average finish per driver versus what we get at them, I'm at 82.7. You are at 70.7 for those.
As good as the week I had with Justin Hailee, you had an even better week with Michael McDowell in terms of plus minus. So I lost ground in the plus minus despite a very good week from Justin Hailee. 21 points isn't quite what I wanted from Hailee. I thought he had even more upside, but I mean, obviously I'll take it. You always want more pluses than minuses. And if we do like a plus minus per week, right? Like how many races have we done so far? 20 something.
That was race number 20.
So if we do plus minus per week.
Yeah.
Let me calculate that.
Yeah, that was race number 20.
So 70.7 divided by 20. Yeah, so my average plus minus per week is 3.535, and Hailee got me 6.7. So, 3 points above even what I've been doing on a weekly basis still wasn't good enough because you were even more above what you've been doing on a weekly basis. So, but hey, I'll take it. You always want to have, especially with one of the shit boxes. And granted, Hailee has been not performing like a shitbox, but typically Rick Ware Racing has been a shitbox team.
Yep.
I'll definitely take that plus there.
Yeah. Comparison-wise, I used Hailee at Atlanta. I got 17 points from him. You got 21 points from him at Chicago Street Course, so you did gain ground as far as, comparing driver to driver.
Exactly.
Finish-wise, which was solid. So, yeah, you get to go first this week, and I'll be honest, I haven't really thought about who I'm going to pick, so I'm interested to see your thought process, hear your thought process. I have a feeling I might know who it's going to be, just looking at who you have left, though.
Well, it's not going to be Daniel Hemrick because I don't have him left, and he's number 1 in my type quality rating. But look at this. I have each of number 2, 3, 4, 5 in my type quality rating left still. Eric Jones, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin. I have all 4 of those left.
I have so when I was looking at who you have left, I have a feeling that you're going to go Bubba. That's what my gut says, but
here's the thing. I could save Bubba for Indy or Kansas. I could save Eric Jones for Darlington if I wanted to.
Or Michigan. He's been really good at Michigan.
Denny Hamlin I can use almost anywhere. Okay. But it is hard to get him at one of his best tracks, right? Like, when you have a driver like Denny Hamlin who's good everywhere and then still is 20% above on this type, it's hard not to use him here. But he has plenty of places he's good. It's just like, I'm not using Denny Hamlin at Roval. I'm not using Denny Hamlin at Talladega. I'm not using Denny Hamlin at Watkins Glen. I'm not using Denny Hamlin at Atlanta. Not using him at Daytona. You know, like you said, I could use Jones maybe at Michigan. So I think for me, it comes down to Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch.
Ooh.
Where am I going to use Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch after this week? Maybe Bristol?
Could see that.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch is one of those, like, do you use him at second Atlanta? You know, like, is that where we've gotten to with Busch?
Kind of saving, I think Suarez maybe for Atlanta too, potentially, or somebody else, you know, a crappier car. It's tough, man. I think for me this week it is between Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, and I think the only reason I'm not going Denny Hamlin is because they're in, right? They're in. They don't have a ton to race for. Like, they're a little too far out probably to get the points win. But they're not that far out where, like, they could still climb a spot or two in points. So maybe stage points matters to them, or a playoff point matters to them. Kyle Busch needs to win to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm going Kyle Busch this week.
I like that pick. That's a good pick. Because if Kyle Busch has speed, Pocono's been a great track for him. So I cannot argue with that pick. He's coming off a 9th place finish at the Chicago Street Course last week. I think that's a really good pick.
It's tough. I don't love to do it, but it's who I'm going with this week. Which means I've almost surely penciled in Bubba for next week or Kansas. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Or Michigan. He was really strong at Michigan last year.
Yeah. But then Eric Jones, of course, as well, right? Like,
yep.
Where are we using Eric Jones? Darlington.
Yeah, because, I mean, we both had him penciled in for Darlington, but now it's like, you know, is that the best choice? I tell you what, I am shuffling a bunch of guys in my head right now. My gut instinct right now says go with Daniel Suarez. My gut also says Eric Jones. This is a good place to use Eric Jones. I don't trust either of them. Suarez hasn't had a ton of speed. Jones, like I said, does not qualify well, but he tends to move up. Nothing's guaranteed, though, you know, with something like that. This is tough. I'm going to go... And, I mean, I still have Daniel Hemrick. Could I go Daniel Hemrick here? Oh, my God. Would I go Daniel Hemrick at Pocono? No, don't do it.
You got to kind of save him for a super speedway, right?
That's what I'm thinking, but like, I still have Zane Smith to use. Mm-hmm. I still have John Hunter Nemechek to use.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fuck. Which makes me now I'm leaning more toward. I was just leaning toward Suarez. Now I'm leaning more toward Jones. I'm gonna go. I am going Daniel Suarez. I'm rolling with it. and I'm hoping for the best. I don't like it, but I'm rolling with it. And I swear, if the good thing is if Daniel Hemrick comes away with a top 10 finish, I bet it, so I'm happy. But if Eric Jones comes away with a top 10, I'm gonna be like, damn it, that was the move. But I'm going Suarez, sticking with it, sticking with my initial gut, which I've been doing all season. So
yeah.
So you have Kyle Busch. I have Daniel Suarez. As far as comparing driver to driver, I got 22 points from Kyle Busch at Charlotte. So he doesn't have to do a lot for you to beat me as far as head to head. You have not used Suarez yet, so I'll be the first one to grab Suarez.
Maybe I should take Ty Gibbs. Now that I'm thinking about stage points.
That's it. Yep.
Ty Gibbs really
that's
pops
another
in
thing.
my model too.
It's one of those. Now, where do you go, Ty Gibbs? Like it has to be a road course, but we have road course wise, we have Watkins Glen and the Roval, and I know both of us are saving Allmendinger and Elliott for those.
Yeah,
races.
exactly.
So you have to pick. Yeah, you have to pick somewhere to pick Gibbs.
Right.
And
I'm very close
officially
to switching
changing
to Ty Gibbs. No, I'm not officially changing, but I am very close to switching to Ty Gibbs. Oh man, I hate this. What have I done to myself? What have I done to myself?
It's tough. This is why this game's so fun, man. This is why.
What have I done to myself? Oh man.
That's the crazy thing is we're sitting here debating I'm sitting here debating whether to use Daniel Hemrick. You're debating between Kyle Busch, maybe a Ty Gibbs. This game is so much fun.
It's crazy. I'm looking last year at stage points. Ty Gibbs got 4 stage points last year. It's kind of in a similar position, right? Where he could maybe points race his way in or not. He got 4 stage points last year, finished 5th. So he ended up with 36 total. Oh, man. Oh, man. I hate this. I don't know what to do. And Kyle Busch did struggle here last year in terms of
yeah, they just were not good here last year.
Shit.
And this is the tough part of, without seeing cars on track, without seeing qualifying or practice.
All right.
We don't know.
I'm going Ty Gibbs.
That's a safe one. I like that.
I'm going Ty Gibbs. I think I need the higher potential for stage points at this point. So I'm going Ty Gibbs. I've talked myself into Ty Gibbs, unfortunately.
I will say, you're getting the wild card out of the way because he's one of those drivers, he's anything but reliable. You're when you're picking him, you're picking his upside. So,
yeah. And I don't hate using Kyle Busch next week at Indy. He's been very good at Indy.
And seeing the Pocono race gives you a chance of what kind of car he's going to have.
Because then I can still save Bubba for a Kansas or a Vegas, right? Or a Michigan or if I want to, a super speedway.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because I kind of boxed myself in. I don't have any shit boxes to use at super speedways anymore.
No. You got Stenhouse, which he's not a shit box.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to use
my worst
McDowell.
is yeah, exactly. Am I using McDowell, Barry, Stenhouse, Jones, right?
Gragson.
So I have to use some of these guys, but I don't really have any shit boxes. I don't have a Daniel Hemrick or a Zane Smith or a John Hunter Nemechek. I stupidly used them in other places, which I think is why I'm behind, and they didn't perform. If I just save John Hunter Nemechek and Zane Smith for super speedways and use somebody else in place of them in those 2 races that I used them, I'm sitting fucking golden in this game now. I got 7 points combined from them when it would be almost impossible for them to get 7 points in 2 super speedway races as long as one of them survives one of those 2 races. It's like, oh man. So kind of screwed up there, but it is what it is. So that's part of why I have some catch up to do.
I'm sticking. I'm going back and forth in my head. I'm sticking with Suarez. I'm not gonna switch it. Sticking with Suarez. You're sticking with Ty Gibbs as of now. You can still change your mind.
It's official. It's official.
Okay. Man, Suarez hitting the wall and Gibbs running top 5, and all of a sudden we're tied.
Hell, I could use Kyle Busch at Talladega or something,
Yep. Or, I mean, Atlanta.
As bad as that team's been running, Talladega may be one of his best tracks remaining.
Right? Yeah, we have three super speedways left. So,
yeah.
Man, this is shaping up to be good.
Yeah.
And we're getting to that point now where, like, I almost want to just start penciling in which drivers I'm going and like only deviating from that strategy if I can definitely make a huge case against it.
Yeah, like, I mean, you and I have basically penciled in Chase Elliott for Watkins Glen, Dinger for Roval. I know I have Josh Berry basically penciled in for Martinsville.
I think I'm going to go Briscoe at Phoenix. So
I have Briscoe left. Wait, no, I don't have Briscoe left. I have the 10 left. Who's that, Gragson? Yeah, I could pencil in Gragson or Berry for Martinsville. Probably Gragson at either Vegas or Kansas, given how good he was at the 1.5ers this year.
My issue is looking at who I have left. I have Zane Smith left. I have Eric Jones left, who I have penciled in for Michigan right now. I have John Hunter Nemechek left. So let's say I have 2 shit boxes here. I have Daniel Hemrick left. I have Corey LaJoie left, and I have Austin Dillon left. So I have 5 mid-pack or worse guys overall each week, and I only have 3 super speedways to work with.
Yeah.
So I need to really hone in on what I'm going to do with those guys. I think that's my biggest issue right now.
I just realized I could pencil Noah Gragson in for Darlington almost. And then take Eric Jones at a drafting track.
Or we got Homestead too.
Yeah,
Gragson is really good at Homestead, wasn't he?
Yep. That's a good point. But I also have Larson that I kind of want to use at either Darlington or Homestead.
Then that becomes that issue as well. Like we have the studs left too, and oh fucking A.
Yeah, this is wild.
Man, yeah, this is gonna be fun to watch how this plays out. But you have I have Suarez this week. Sorry, you have Gibbs for Pocono, race number 21, and that's all I got this week. We'll be back next week to talk Indy, and then we get 2 weeks off. I'm excited for this little break. I'm excited for this midseason break. Not that I'm not enjoying this NASCAR season, but I think we all need a little break, reset, and go. Go Daniel Hemrick this weekend. Give me another top 10. If Daniel Hemrick gets me another top 10 finish, I stone colded beers last time.
I might sprinkle it just to jinx you because because my top 10 bets, like my long shot ones, just whenever they're in position to hit a top 10, they just get trashed.
Fall apart with 2 laps to go.
Corey LaJoie 27-1, Hocevar 11-1, 12-1, whatever. I'll hit like the 330 like I hit Bowman, or the 550 with Gillen. I'm talking like the double digit ones.
Yep.
Have just been terrible this year.
That's what I should do. I should make Gibbs my pick to win this week. Lap 3, boom. Who blew the engine? The 54.
Oh, man.
Didn't I do that a few weeks ago when you had like Logano or something?
Yeah.
I did, at Gateway.
You did.
And he finished second, so you're welcome.
Yeah, let's go.
Oh, shit. All right. Good luck to everybody this weekend at Pocono. We'll be back next week, talk about Indy. And hopefully we get another good race. We know this is Nick's favorite track, so we should see it. We should see another good race. Pocono's always fun. Good luck, everybody.
Back to 2 500-mile races at Pocono.
We should take out the stages at Pocono. That'd be fun.
I agree with that. I want that old strategy racing again at Pocono.
Yep.
It's best.
That was I like I said last week, I've always really liked Pocono. As far as like my results, I've had a lot of good luck at Pocono. Which, you know, like in my mind makes me like a track a little bit more. Like I always really liked Old Atlanta because I made so much fucking money at Old Atlanta that it will always be my favorite racetrack.
I like that Casey Kane was always good at Pocono.
Hmm.
And then also got into the trees in Pocono one time.
Oh shit. Okay. Good luck everybody. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys.